to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by to join me today. I really do appreciate it. My name is Ellie and I'm a witch, and this over here is my teaching assistant Auntie, and today is the end of the month. I don't know what day I'm releasing this, but today is the second video that I will be doing for my reading series, which is the Reading Nook. Now after that terrible intro, the book that I'm going to be talking about today is The Housewarming by S.E. Lins. Yeah, this is a long one, so let's just jump in. I will preface this video, I said it in the last one and every video that I've talked about this video in, I don't like this book, and so talking about this one is going to be difficult. So I have two alcoholic beverages to join me if I make it through one. But yeah, so if somebody drinking alcohol during a video is not something that you enjoy, I'm not drunk already, but I feel like it. If you're not comfortable with this, then I don't drink in pretty much any other video, so those would probably be more suited for you. I do not have a physical copy of this, so we're doing this off of my iPad on the Kindle Unlimited or whatever the hell it is. So let's jump into this. So the Housewarming by S.E. Lins uses so many words to say literally nothing. Like the last review, I will give you the synopsis first though, so we all really know what we're working with. Everyone is going to the housewarming party, all the same people who lived on the street the day Abby vanished. Will her mother finally learn the truth? Ava only left her daughter in the pushchair for 5 minutes. The buckle was fastened and she was sure it was safe. But when she came downstairs, the door was open and Abby was gone. She walked down the road past the Lovegoods house and was never seen again. A year later, the Lovegoods throw a housewarming party, showing off the results of the renovation. Ava doesn't want to go. She can't bear to look down that end of the road to see the place where Abby vanished, and she doesn't want to spend time with people who do not share her grief. Her husband Matt persuades her he's worried about her. A night out might do some good, but as her friends and neighbors chat and drink and gossip flows, Ava learns something new about the day she relived 1,000 times. A throwaway comment which could have changed everything. Ava thought she knew every last detail of that day. She's about to find out she was wrong. My takeaway from that synopsis before I read the book: a child named Abby disappeared, obviously. She managed to leave her house and run away, and now she's nowhere to be found. At this point, my number one thought would be that she is found by the end of the book. The housewarming party will be obviously an important part of the book that I assume would take place relatively close to the start of the book. That is about it of my assumptions though. Looking back, I don't know why I picked up this book. I don't have kids, will never have kids. I also wouldn't assume I would enjoy a book focused on parents and a kid, but it is a thriller, so I decided to give it a try. When I think about that morning, I watch myself over and over as if from above. I watch myself like you watch your children in a school play or a sports match, silently willing them to succeed, to shine, to not get hurt. I watch myself bleeding on the sidelines of slowly unfolding disaster, alive with the pain I know is coming, but she, the me of that moment, does not. I do this every minute of every hour of every day, and I have done this for almost a year. This is our intro into the story. Ava, the main character, is clearly stuck in a loop of a very specific sequence of events, seemingly experiencing the events as an out-of-body version of herself. In the memory, she is walking down the stairs with laundry in hand and calling out to her child, Abby. She is talking, but Abby is not responding. Ava just continues to say little things to placate the waiting child. You've been such a good girl, waiting nicely like that. I will say it's completely unnecessary for me to focus on that, but just like in general, can we stop saying good boy or good girl to humans? I get that people do it, but it always sounds condescending, and those terms in my mind are just reserved for pets. Also, why are we talking about it? Stop calling your children son or daughter, just say their names. You gave them names for a reason. Anyways, moving on. Ava starts to panic since Abby isn't responding, and she races downstairs to realize her child is not in her buggy. I stumble, fall down the last few steps. Once again, this part is not particularly important, it just is grammatically wrong. It should be and fall or simply falling. Ava looks around after noticing Abby's missing and realizes that the door is open. So she runs outside, panicking and searching the street, calling her name. She looks a bit more outside before running back inside to search some of the known hiding spots. She doesn't find her and goes back outside. 2 pages are her literally just running around calling for her kid. I was only on Facebook for a few minutes. I needed the loo, so I did a quick wee. You do when your little one is quiet, everyone does. I sat on the loo and scrolled through Facebook, but not for long, not for that long. I only commented on a couple of threads, I only stripped the bed, emptied the washing basket. I understand needing to do chores, but at least check on your unattended toddler before starting another task. It was also just supposedly a quick pee that turned into scrolling Facebook, that turned into commenting on multiple threads, that turned into stripping the bed. That is too much time away from your kid who hasn't made any noise during that time. Back to the present though, Abby is still just running around the street looking for her kid or any sign of Abby. She knocks on the door of Neil and Bella, who are Abby's godparents, but they aren't home. She then goes back to running up and down the street. I'm wasting precious time. Seconds are becoming minutes, are already minutes, minutes are becoming... I think I need to call the police. The police should have been the first thought. Losing your kid inside while the door is locked is one thing, but the door was open and your child is missing. I would rather a scared parent call the police and then find their kiddo safe and sound than do what Ava is doing. Also, for anyone who says I don't understand because I am not a parent, for this whole review, I consulted my own mother about certain things. When I was super small in the crawling stage, I apparently hid from my mom and she lost me in our locked apartment. She had her phone in hand while searching the apartment because even though the door was closed and locked, she was terrified. It took her 15 minutes to find me, but she said that she was maybe a minute from calling police. That is the right energy to have. She also said that had the door been opened, it would have taken her less than a minute to call 911. I thought I'd close the front door. I'm sure I did, but I'm so tired. My brain is fog, more so these last couple of weeks. It must have banged against the catch. It does that sometimes, but I'm careful. I am very careful. I called it right here, like this exact quote, that this is going to be a twist. I will also include a tally at the end of the number of times the twists are mentioned, because they aren't twists when you mention them 400 times before the reveal. Anyways, she is still running around the street, crying fat rolling tears. I call Matt. The first call should be to police, but she is determined to make every wrong choice. Matt answers and Ava tells him Abby is missing. Matt, I can't find Abby. What do you mean you can't find her? She's not under the couch. Not under the couch? What? She undid her buggy clasp. What? Okay, Ava, can you just... I left the front door open. I left the door open, Matt. And she's... Oh god, the oven is empty. Oh, thank god. Ava, slow down. Just tell me what's going on. So I am so unsure as to what Matt needs more. Ava is crying, so she might be hard to understand, but if that was the case, it should have been written in a broken up way so that the reader can understand why Matt doesn't understand. However, Ava was pretty succinct. Abby is missing, she undid her buckle, the door was open. There is no added context needed. As a parent, you should immediately be on top of that. I'm coming home, did you call the police? That's a question that makes sense, but no, he said, just tell me what's going on. She's probably hiding. Matt's voice is calm, the voice of reason. You know what she's like. Have you tried upstairs? I, I literally do not care if Ava missed Abby hiding in the closet. Your wife called you and said she could not find your child and the front door was open. You go home. You do not question it. You do not pass go. You do not collect $200. You go home. Not yet. I'm in the house. Abby, love, she's not in her room. She's not in her room. She's not under the bed. Oh god. Oh my god, it's been ages. Do you think I should call the police? God, no. She'll be somewhere. Have you checked the garden? My question at page 17 of this book. Are we supposed to hate these people? I get panic, but she was able to call Matt, yet she can't call police. I can be, and am of course, sympathetic to people who have lost loved ones, but you did everything wrong, and the way she ends up acting later in the book just makes me want to punch her in the face. Look, I'm coming home, Matt says. I'm not far, I just got a puncture on the towpath, so I'm this side of Richmond. Just keep looking, yeah? I'm turning around, okay? I'm heading back. This should have been the only thing that was said when, you know, Ava called, along with, hey, maybe call the police. That was all of chapter 1, and I did want to make a note in case you missed it. I was making a point to jump back and forth between random shit she was thinking and the fact that she was just searching the street every time we came back to the present. These chapters are filled with this kind of writing. Nothing is happening, it's just X action, memory, X action, memory, X action, just chapter after chapter. It was blind, blind, blind. This is so simple, but the repetition gets incredibly annoying in my opinion. It adds nothing, and if it was like a one-off thing, I wouldn't really care, but it is just time and time again. It doesn't add anything, and it doesn't add emphasis to anything important. Anyways, Ava is reliving the day again at the start of the chapter. Literally nothing is added, but I should have checked the door and tell her. Another mention, but I will stop mentioning it until my final tally. You are welcome. She goes back to reliving the day. She is again running the streets and goes up to some other mothers and asks if they have seen Abby, and they say no and are totally uninterested. They nod and smile. We've all been there is what they say without words. Yes, we've all been there, but that doesn't make it any less frightening. I highlighted this and wrote, "Who is we?" And I stand by that. This is not a common thing at all. Yes, having your child wander off, or maybe you lose them in the house for a couple of minutes, but no one is saying that it is a totally normal occurrence to lose your child like that. If a mother comes running up to me, crying and asking if I have seen her child, I am helping her look. No questions asked. Like, I feel like that is a pretty universal thing, even though I am not a parent. Anyways, she is once again running the streets. Do not clean the bathroom. We now have another chore added to the list that she did that day before checking on her child. This not only establishes her as an unreliable narrator, bending the truth to make herself look better, but it also extends the timeline for how long Abby was missing. She had gone to the bathroom for a pee break, then scrolled on Facebook, responded to comments, cleaned the bathroom, and stripped the beds to be washed, all before checking on Abby. Anyways, she is running the street again. Still has not called police. It's after 8:45. I annotated this part as saying Abby has been missing for an hour. I don't think that has been covered yet, but she said that they got back to the house at like 8 a.m. or so we give her a little time to go upstairs and for Abby to leave. Police still weren't called and she's just running around, but Matt shows up and the chapter ends with Matt calling the police. Almost a year ago and yesterday all at once. No matter how much time passes, that day will always be yesterday, and I will have to make my peace with that somehow. The laundry tumbles from my arm. I fall after it. The pushchair is empty. The front door is open. I left it open. Me, over and over again. I will put on screen what I cut out, but it is just more repetition between the two quotes. This is literally every chapter before the actual housewarming party. It is literally same shit, different day, and it is mind-numbing. It never adds anything. I just want to know what you are doing now. We learn that the couple had another kid though, Fred. He is 3 months old. In this chapter, I actually agree with Ava for the first time, and I only agree with her on like 3 total occasions. But if anyone else tells me that God only gives us what we can handle, or that everything happens for a reason, I swear I will punch them in the jaw. Look at me when I tell you this. Stop doing this. Okay? It does not make anyone feel better. Unless you know for 110% fact that that person subscribes to that way of thinking, don't even think it. This is also not a slam on religion. If you think your hard times are a challenge by God to make you stronger, power to you. But people who suffer great losses are not in the mood to be told it's actually a good thing in the long run for you to suffer immensely and in a way that you will likely never come to terms with. Fred was already on the way when Abby disappeared. I thought the foggy brain and the nausea were exhaustion from disturbed sleep and the endless activities of life with a small, bright, curious child. I took the thickening of my waistline as a sign that, post-baby, it was harder now to keep the weight off, that perhaps my shape had changed. But then my period was late, and so, the day before she went missing, that Sunday morning, I snuck into the bathroom and did a test, and there he was, 2 blue lines on a white stick. The timeline does not add up, and there is more proof later of that fact, which I will bring up at that time. Anyways, Fred is 3 months old and Abby has been missing for a year. Women are pregnant for 10 months or 40 weeks, and there are 52 weeks in a year. 3 months is 12 weeks. This would mean that Fred needed to be conceived the day Abby disappeared, but we just got confirmation that that is in fact not the case. She was already pregnant. Now, before I go on, I will say I have never been pregnant and will never be, so the information that I have comes from medical websites for this section. It is not common for women to notice weight gain until the third trimester, which starts at 28 weeks of pregnancy. Some women notice 1 to 4 pounds of weight in the first trimester, but that is not something you notice on your body unless you're actively watching the scale or are underweight. She clearly is not watching the scale, but she noticed the weight gain before testing, so Fred has to be older than 3 months. That is the point I'm trying to get at. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I shoved the test in my pocket. Just a toothbrush that broke, I said, rolling my eyes, but she'd already gone back to her task. I just want to know why she couldn't tell her it was a test. Like, I doubt she would have cared, especially since she didn't care with the answer she was given. My other question is, why did she roll her eyes? A toddler really wouldn't understand what that means, but she also wasn't really paying attention to notice it. It just kind of felt like she was being shitty because her toddler asked her a question. The chapter sees Matt learn she's pregnant and them tell their friends Neil and Bella. Bella starts crying, which Ava thinks she means is happy, but she is actually sad because of her own struggles getting pregnant and that she had just lost a pregnancy, although Matt and Ava do not know that yet. It's as if he knows that he has to tread carefully over the eggshells his parents have become. Now, I hate this. I get that obviously a baby would not understand what is happening and that he isn't actually being extra careful to behave, but it comes across that Fred is lucky he is an easy baby, otherwise his parents would hate him or lose their shit. I don't know yet. I haven't got x-ray vision. I'm harsh with him. I don't mean to be. Didn't used to be. It is reasonable to change after a great loss, and it is okay to have more triggers. My issue with Ava is she is just being shitty for the sake of it. Matt also lost his child that day, so he is grieving, but because he isn't grieving how Ava is, she thinks it is wrong, and therefore he can do no right. You never have the right to treat your partner like shit, especially if you can recognize you're doing it, but choose to continue. Anyways, they get an invite to the Lovegoods housewarming party, and the invite specifically says no kids. Also on the invite, Johnny, Jennifer, Jasmine, and Cosmina Lovegood. Why couldn't they just stick to the J names? Also, Jennifer later says that her kids have middle class names, which is weird to me. Like, do names denote class? And if yes, I want to know if my name is middle class too. A week on Saturday, we'll be able to have a nosy at their new kid. What are you doing? Hey, don't screw it up. What, you're not actually going to go? This is part of my whole grievance against Ava. She is so incredibly self-centered, and if something isn't about her, she refuses to take part or even be able to understand how other people can take part in an event. Like, why wouldn't Matt attend? It's not a requirement for Ava to attend as well. It isn't couples only, but nope, because she won't go, he isn't allowed to. Ava starts talking about how Abby would have been 3 just like Cosima, which I pretty sure I said her name wrong. I keep doing that. I keep calling her Cosmina. It's Cosima. The party doesn't have to be about Abby, he almost whispers. It could be about us going forward, trying to make that step. And their kitchen will be spectacular, I guarantee it. Like something out of Hello magazine. It was never about Abby. Everything had to be about Ava and her grief. She doesn't want to attend the party because no one else is grieving the loss of her child like she is. It is normal to want support, but to expect everyone to grieve your child as hard as you are makes literally no sense. It has also been a year. Sympathy is expected from other people, but that isn't about it. Her not attending the party is her right, but it comes exclusively from a place of narcissism. I am blind, I am deaf, I am senseless. A comma is just desperately needed because it is difficult to read. I get what she is going for, blending then and now, but I should understand that right away, rather than being confused and needing to reread every few words. Chapter 4 gives us a flashback to the day of the appearance, when police finally are involved. One bit that bothers me is where they introduce PC Peaks, but then 2 pages later reiterate his name as if the reader couldn't possibly remember his name from a couple pages before. The rest of the chapter is the measures being taken to find Abby, like the use of police canines. Chapter 5 is from Matt's perspective, and I will say that I dislike how the author chose to do perspectives. Ava's chapters are all first person, but everyone else's is third person. This chapter is also about the search efforts, but from Matt's perspective. Matt actually went out on the search, by the way, and Ava stayed home. Not to say that there's anything wrong with searching or waiting at home. It's fine either way, just so you know Matt actually went out and did something Ava did not. Ava is crying. The family liaison officer, Lorraine was it, has moved to sit beside her and is holding her hand. It is a strangely intimate sight, a woman he doesn't know sitting so close to his wife, holding her hand. Now, I don't want to assume that this was meant in any way other than, like, platonic intimacy, but, like, what? The last thing on my mind when my child is missing would be that some lady holding my wife's hand is intimate. This is also not the only time that this weird concept of intimacy is brought up. Going back to the chapter though, Neil finds Mr. Sloth, Abby's favorite stuffy, on the driveway and brings it to the police. The dogs also find some blood on the sidewalk, but Ava and Matt confirm that it was from when Abby had tripped and scraped her knee that morning. Matt in this chapter also stops a couple of women to see if they have seen anything. They stare back, a look of mild concern. Kids wander off all the time, he reads. She'll turn up. This is not normal, and 9 times out of 10, no one would so callously brush off a clearly distressed parent saying their kid is missing. I am all for safety, but it's not like he asked them to help him search, but he just asked if they had seen anything. People around here do that. They take care of one another. I just want to know what this statement is based on. Like, truly, what is he on about? Because none of the people approached cared one bit about a toddler that was missing. Abby is 2 years old, and not a single person showed any sympathy, but somehow he thinks that people care about one another. Chapter 6 is still following Matt, but it is now present day. He and Neil go out and exercise a lot now. Now into his 30s, he's getting love handles. It's just not a thing that men or most people would notice, especially about a close friend. The author is just clearly not privy to what men think, I think. Also, why does it matter that he might have gained weight? Matt is apparently sickly thin, but why would you even think something shitty about Neil when he is at least healthy? Anyways, the two go exercise, chat about work and party. Also, I think I should mention that Neil hates Johnny Lovegood, but he was their contractor for the renovations. Matt cuts in. He doesn't like it when Neil gets chippy, especially now that Matt's career is taking off. It's not the first time he's had a go at Johnny Lovegood. I have no idea how this relates to Matt and his career at all. I would maybe understand wanting Neil to be nicer when he's speaking about a past client, because it's possible a future client might overhear and not want to hire him as a result. But how on earth does this private conversation where Neil is being negative affect Matt's career? Matt talks to Neil about how Ava doesn't want to go to the party. She could sit in the corner with Fred if she needed to. Later on, Jennifer does give the okay for Ava to bring Fred, but she hasn't yet. The invite said no kids, and that means no kids. If they didn't feel comfortable getting a sitter, okay, but then Ava would have an excuse to stay home, but instead this just comes across as parental entitlement. Yeah, the invite says no kids, but that couldn't possibly mean my child. Chapter 7 has 6 pages of an interaction with a neighbor. It literally equates to nothing. We jump back in time again to the day Abby disappeared. Once again, we just go over the details of that morning with police. Also, question. Little uns. Genuinely, what is that for? Youngins is the only thing that I could think of, but that's spelled with an I and not a U as far as I know. So, what is she saying? Anyways, you called after you search, and you were right to call when you did. I get that she is saying this because Ava is already distraught, and telling her that she should have called sooner wouldn't really help the situation. But she did nothing right. I would 100% be suspicious if I was the cop. Like, what parent searches for their kid for over an hour before even thinking to call police? The chapter ends with, she might never have undone the clasp. Someone else might have. Would Abby have not reacted? If someone she knew came in and grabbed her, she probably would have reacted positively, and had Ava been paying attention, she could have heard it. But if it had been somebody she had not been familiar with, Abby would have screamed, right? It is established that Ava was not paying attention, but would she have missed her child in obvious distress? Chapter 8 is from Matt's point of view and is literally just more about the police searches and Matt and Neil searching themselves. Literally nothing of note happens once again. What did bother me though is that on page 80, halfway through the paragraph that is talking about the past, we get a thought from present day. It is structured like this that makes the book confusing to read at times. If there's one person on this earth he can tell, it is this man, and he has to tell someone. It is so incredibly obvious that this almost reveal is that Matt left the damn door open. It isn't a twist if you mention it ad nauseum. Chapter 9 is still about that day. Once again, nothing actually matters. Their sobs muscular. The first thing I thought while reading this was, fellas, is it gay to cry when your daughter goes missing? Like, why can't he just have cried? Men are allowed to cry, it is not a gender thing. It doesn't have to be strong and muscly. It is heart-wrenching to watch, would have sufficed over muscular sobs. The weight of Fred in my belly, even though he's only the size of a grain of rice. This proves that the timeline is messed up. A fetus is the size of a grain of rice at week 5 of pregnancy, which would mean that Fred should be at least 4 months old at present day. Not a huge discrepancy, but all it took was simple Googling for me to prove the timeline, so a little more research on the author's part would have been nice. Also, this chapter we get, Matt is holding an up-to-the-minute iPhone. This is the first time that up-to-the-minute is used, and it does not mean what the author thinks it means. What she means is that is the newest version of the iPhone. Up to the minute means the latest development or information. So for the news or tracking of the news, not for physical items. Like I said, this is not the only time the author says it, so it is just an interesting thing to note. I stand up, I walk down the hall and into the kitchen. My phone is charging on the countertop. I unplug it, stretch my arm as long as it will go, and bring it down hard, releasing the phone at the last second. It clatters on the tiles, but doesn't smash. I open the cupboard where we keep the vacuum cleaner and a few basic tools. I pull out a screwdriver, a spanner, a hammer. A moment later, I am straddled over my iPhone. I am bringing the hammer down on it over and over. My phone crunches, bounces, breaks. I do not blame Ava 100% for her child being missing. Do I think she is Parent of the Year? Absolutely not by a long shot. She was not even listening out for her child for 30 minutes minimum. If you need a break as a parent, take it. Go do the laundry, but at least keep an ear out or check in on the kiddo. Then, she didn't call police until Abby had been missing for over an hour. She did so many things wrong, but Abby being able to leave the house is not fully her fault. However, my problem with her is that as a character, she is just selfish and is unable to take any accountability. Her phone is not the reason that Abby is missing. Her phone didn't put a gun to her head and force her to scroll and ignore her child. The phone did not install and sign into her Facebook itself. She chose to be distracted. There is a conversation to be had about screen time for adults, but it is not your phone's fault. You make a choice. If she wants to uninstall apps or even put parental locks so that she is forced to limit her own screen time, power to her. But destroying the phone is her putting the responsibility on an inanimate object instead of facing the reality. Chapter 10 is present day Ava. She runs into Bella, who she hasn't seen since after Abby disappeared. She thinks Bella is being shitty by offering to cut her hair and asking to do her nails. She then tells Matt about the encounter and she is trying to make it seem like Bella was being rude, but Matt is not taking the bait to start an argument. Bella will be happy with that, Matt replies flatly, and Neil will do a great job. I nod, feeling thwarted. She knows that she's doing it on purpose, and I just don't understand why. She already feels miserable. Whether or not Matt argued with her, she would be miserable. It would feel exactly the same as if she just went off on her own and stewed about the encounter, so like, leave Matt alone. The rest of the chapter is more about the self-care Bella has had done and ends with Matt being shoved out the door to work. He's doing his best, we both are. And I just want to know what on earth her best means to her. Like, okay, she hasn't killed herself over the guilt or out of grief, but she is actively being shitty to literally everyone she encounters and is actively being a terrible partner. Matt is trying to live life as best he can after his daughter's presumed death. She isn't doing anything. Moving on, we meet Jennifer Lovegood in chapter 11. Jennifer is the only person that Ava is kind to, and she sees Jennifer as a friend. Ava is very open with Jennifer, who tells her to call her Jen, about how she is actually feeling, that being how guilty she feels about Abby's disappearance. Jen has come over to tell Ava that she is not obligated to attend the housewarming party, which makes Ava feel better about not wanting to go. Later, when Matt gets home, she tells him that Jen had visited, and Matt is thrilled his wife actually had human interaction. After dinner, Neil arrives to train with Matt, who is upstairs, so Ava has to answer the door. He blushes, actually blushes as he says hello. I don't understand why the author insists on the romantic language surrounding things that are not romantic, or should not be romantic. He was flushed, or even he looked startled, face reddening as he tried to hide his shock. Anyways, her and Neil have a short back and forth before Matt arrives and the two men leave. Ava then demonstrates why she has no friends. What they find to talk about, I cannot fathom. It just reads that she doesn't know what friends talk about because she doesn't say it as a gender thing, like she doesn't understand male thoughts or conversations, but it reads as like she does not know how to have a conversation with a friend. She then is going over the events of the day that Abby disappeared, literally nothing to note there, and then the chapter ends. I think I skipped saying that part of that was chapter 12, but chapter 13 is from Matt's point of view. Him and Neil are running, but Neil notices that Matt doesn't look so hot, and he suggests that they go to a pub instead. As he's waiting for Neil to return to the table with drinks, he thinks about his body and how he just doesn't look in a mirror anymore because he's not taking care of himself, but then he makes the weirdest comment. The premature middle-aged sag of his nipples. Like, what? I know that the breast sag as you age for men and women, but the nips, I didn't know that was a thing that I would even have to worry about. But also, is any guy noticing their nipples? Neil pushes his bottom lip up against the top and nods. The author seems like they have a word count to hit. Just say he pursed his lips. I also don't even think that pushing your bottom lip to your top lip makes sense. You look like a badly taxidermied otter, like all sad. I doubt that was the intention. The rest of the chapter is just nothing of note. But like, okay, viewers at home, please do that. Please, please push your bottom lip up against the top because you look twins. Chapter 14 is back to Ava's perspective. Matt comes home and he wants to make dinner, which somehow means that Ava is fat. If I don't fight against it, I will become the weight, and Matt will have no choice but to cut himself loose and float away forever. Couples that go through loss or death of a child do have higher divorce rates, but he has stayed. She treats him like absolute garbage, and he stayed. But she really thinks that her postpartum body is what's going to make him leave. It isn't just her own body that she takes issue with, though. I slide the butter and cheese across the counter towards him, trying not to notice that he has no bottom at all now. It's... Is it really a slam against him? No. But it's just weird and unnecessary for the author to keep ragging on everyone's body for no reason. We all exist in different sizes, so let's stop normalizing authors writing like this. Chapter 15 is all about Ava's trip to the hair spa. Literally nothing happens. But I flick through the magazines, try not to look too openly aghast at the misogynistic shaming of other women's bodies. The author, like, almost got it. She was so close, but it's still somehow missing how she is shaming everyone's body, regardless of gender. As someone who is mid-sized myself, I know very well how awful people can be about women's bodies, but why is it that when authors like this try to do the whole it's equality thing, they focus on the negatives? Like, how about we stop talking about anyone's body instead of shaming men and women equally? Oh, I'm sorry though, I lied. There is more than just the hair spa drivel. Ava is thinking about the past again. I know only that their younger daughter is about the age Abby would have been, or might still be, because I remember seeing Jen persuade her into the car once at the weekend. This is like, I had a little bit of hope here, my first read through. My thought of what was going to happen in this thriller is that the Lovegood's daughter, who was Abby's age, died. So they kidnapped Abby, and come time for the party, they will mean to keep her hidden, but she calls out and Ava hears her and gets obsessed. That is not what happens, but that, at least in my opinion, is a decent thriller. Chapter 16 is from Matt's point of view again. They are getting ready to leave for the party next door, and Bella and Neil come over to have a drink beforehand. Well, I guess I also kind of skipped over, Ava finally agrees to go to the party because of what Jen said, not because of the fact that her husband was interested in going, or that it's a good idea for her to socialize with people. None of that mattered. Anyway, she decides to go to the party. She begrudgingly agrees to go. And to be fair, she has showered her refurbishment project with plenty of tender, loving care. Neil is dressed up for the party. He is not in his work overalls, and Bella is an attractive woman, but this is apparently what Matt thinks of his two supposed closest friends. Maybe Bella actually just loved Neil, and as they were together, he adopted her style, or she bought him clothes for no ulterior motive, but rather because she thought of him. Matt clearly does not like Bella for some reason and is just shitty. Hotel Chocolat. She pronounces chocolate like chocolar. Please let me know if any of you say it like that. Like, seriously. If you want to make her seem pompous, then have her say it like the French do, like with the accent and everything, like Hotel Chocolat. But this just makes me think that the author wants us to hate Bella, but I could not tell you for what reason we would dislike her. We also get another up to the minute quote. Her dress, Matt suspects, is up to the minute. It was not until this quote that I understood where the author went dumb. Just like with the iPhone, they mean the newest trend or current trend. Again, there is another slight against Bella from Matt. They bother him because he can't separate her polished appearance from how it might make Ava feel. It is not uncommon for humans to be insecure. Novel thought, I know. Everyone can be insecure. It doesn't matter if you like your style or your body, you can be insecure about anything. My issue from this quote is that Matt is acting like he expects the world to come down to Ava's level so that she isn't insecure. It is always good to see a husband support his wife and think about how she feels preemptively, but it is not the world's responsibility to stop being who they are because of someone else's insecurities. I, personally, am incredibly insecure about my body and my style, but I am not going to be upset if someone else is attractive or has a style I don't think I can wear. That could also just be the gay in me, but another girl being attractive is not a threat. Anyways, they are ready to go out. Ava thinks about Abby, but nothing else matters. Back to Ava's perspective for chapter 17, and we are finally at the party. Introductions and coat taking are really boring, but then Ava is again thinking of the past and how she went and she talked to Johnny that day that Abby went missing. He wouldn't shut up about the door. Then Jen is also weird. They hate anything pretentious, which is half the reason we landed our girls with outrageously middle-class names. I talked in the beginning about her saying this, but it gets me every time. Then it's just party filler. Matt leaves her, Jen finds her and lets her sit with Fred away from the party. Everyone is quickly getting drunk and oohing and awing about the renovations, and that is the whole chapter. We are still at the party at the start of chapter 18. It is now 9:30, and Ava is not pleased to still be there and having to talk to people. I am defined by what has happened. I doubt that anyone would talk to her different if she stopped letting it be her whole personality. I am sure that all of us who have lost someone or someone's close to us know that it does affect you every day. But my whole family has not been so affected that we never talk to anyone again. I have lost my dad and numerous other family members, but people around me, and bear in mind we were literal kindergartners when I lost my dad, they could talk about other things. It didn't define me. It sure feels like it does, and I can admit to that, but it only defines you if you let it. Anyway, the chapter goes on, they're still at the party, Ava is still hating it. The one thing that I will give this book is the portrayal of Jasmine. She is disabled, and given how the rest of the book has been, I was nervous. But actually it's handled really well. She is treated like a person, and everyone is incredibly kind and considerate to her and her condition. The Lovegoods show off the kids, and Jasmine points out different neighbors by what she has seen them do. They all get excited and say, yeah, that sure is a thing I do. Then she gets to Neil, calling him Pockets. This is because at work he would wear overalls with pockets, and he would pull her toys from them and play around with her. And then the kids are taken to bed while Johnny makes a little speech, and he tells everyone the incredible work that they see is thanks to Neil, and he explains why Jasmine calls him Pockets, which pisses him right off. Johnny's comment just now would have been innocuous, but the drawing of attention to Neil's role as laborer in Johnny's home, under Johnny's professional direction, with its implications of class and hierarchy, is blatant. It's possible I'm being oversensitive, overthinking, but if I am, then so is Matt. Everyone is being wildly oversensitive. He pointed out that Neil worked hard, and as a result, he is promoting Neil's business. Neil is just prickly that he works a job he enjoys, I guess. The party starts up again, and Ava wants to leave. Chapter 20 is from Matt's point of view. Picking up from right after the speech, since Neil ran off to the backyard, Matt is trying to reason with him that Johnny didn't mean anything by the speech. Mate, it was his daughter. She can't help it. She doesn't speak in sentences. That's not her fault. Johnny was just trying to, I don't know, accommodate her? Johnny was giving a context to what she said. Everyone knows that Neil did the renovations, so pointing out that he worked for Johnny is not news and no one cares, but they were probably confused as to why he was called Pockets when the nicknames were explained as they came up. He is not having it though. He gave me a 500 quid tip. 5 bloody ton. Who does that? I said nah, but he insisted. Said I'd done an exceptional job and deserved it and all that nonsense. So in the end I took it. I took it because I reckoned it was more of his patronizing bullshits. Do you know what I mean? Pay the little man. I get that it is not the norm everywhere to tip, but it does generally exist. Neil is just too sensitive to the fact that the Lovegoods make more money. Money they worked hard for, not that it was just handed to them, mind you. Neil then just leaves the party. 21, and we are back to Ava. She's in the driveway sending Matt a text that she is going home. Neil and her run into each other since he has also just left. He offers to walk her home since he's going that way anyway. They talk a bit about what Johnny said and then about Abby. I just haven't had room to, for anything else, anyone else, and if I'm honest, I've been hurt by how distant you've been. I don't know what she wants, like truthfully. Does she want space or does she not want space? Matt has tried to be there for her, and she basically says that that has made her feel worse, so she wants space, but now she tells Neil, she has said that Neil has given her space. Anyways, he apologizes, she apologizes. There is a beat, and it's no more than that. When a kiss is a possibility, not a kiss of friendship, nor one of two people caught up in a lust for one another. Another kind of kiss, a connection too deep, a moment too intimate for what we are supposed to be to one another. I am certain he feels it too. They are both feeling like they could cheat, question mark. I am a firm believer in trusting someone until they give you a reason not to trust them, and a big part of that is being with someone you can trust. I don't have to trust anyone else. I trust my partner to say no and to leave a situation like this. That is what trust is. They are both married and need to walk away and stay away from each other after this interaction. He takes my hand, rubs his thumb across the back of my knuckles. His skin is rougher than Matt's. A scratch and a caress. This feels too dangerous. She is now comparing a man who is not her husband to her husband and saying it is dangerous. Are we supposed to like her at all? We are friends, become strangers, become friends again, almost more. I'm beating a dead horse. But these are mere paragraphs from one another. Neil then drops this line. He left the door open. It wasn't you. It was him. And then the chapter ends. Chapter 22 is back to Matt, who is still at the party. Bella, very drunk, starts talking to him, then fixes Matt with a direct, almost flirtatious stare. Not everyone wants to shag the main characters, especially these main characters. Like, Jesus, chill out. To prove how drunk she is, she says. I can't remember. Anyways, this is my 4th LOL. She said LOL out loud. Because, like, my question is, did she say the LOL out loud? Because I would get that there is some dislike towards her in that case. I feel like this is just like the chocolate thing that's like thrown in there to make her seem stupid. Hot and stupid, for no reason. Matt goes to try to find Ava and runs into Jen instead. He has to make her right. This is what he thinks. Not a thing he says out loud, but it is still gross. We do not fix people. They are not something that is broken. If you do not like someone as they are, do not stay to try and fix them. Maybe they are happy with how they are, or maybe it is something that they need to work on. But they are not projects, they are people. Him and Jen talk, but it is more nothing. He then leaves to try to find Ava again, but he doesn't find her, takes a rest, putting his hand on a steel beam in the house. The living pulse of the house. Buildings have a soul. He believes this. They transmit a feeling almost immediately. He knows it has to do with the design, with layout, with color, and with the people in them, whether or not the guests are truly welcome, whether or not the hosts have had a blazing row 5 minutes before, but sometimes it feels more mysterious than that, as if the very foundation, bricks and walls are in fact a living body, the plumbing, the digestive system, the electrics, the veins, and arteries. He looks up and only then does he notice an industrial-looking clock fixed with fused bolts to the metal beam. This is what he felt, not the music, but this, the beat of the seconds, like a heart. We are back outside with Ava and Neil for the next chapter. The bomb has been dropped and now Neil is trying to give some of the story. Matt stopped back into the house to grab a coat and say a quick hi to Abby, calling out bye to Ava and leaving the door open. He said he called Tata, but you didn't hear him. The issue I have with this is that I have no doubts that he called out to his loving wife and daughter and that leaving the door open was an accident. My problem is that did Abby not call out to her dad? She was excited enough that she got out of her stroller to go after him, but didn't utter anything? I doubt that, which would mean that Ava was not keeping an ear out for her toddler while doing a ton of other things. Parents make mistakes, but you are a parent 24/7 and you do have to sacrifice so much and do so much work. But that is what you sign up for when you become a parent. If you are burnt out or angry, absolutely take a step back. Do not put your child in harm's way. But you still need to at least be aware of what they're doing and where they are. You don't turn your ears off and go do chores. Anyways, she is losing it. But you have to forgive him, babe. He loves you more than anything in this world. I would also love for us to stop normalizing this demand for forgiveness. It is not the end-all be-all. You do not owe that other person forgiveness. Most of the time, it is said to appease someone who has hurt you in some way, rather than because it actually makes the hurt person feel better. Forgive if you want, not because someone else said you need to. Matt left the door open. My own husband is responsible for my daughters. She is right to feel angry. He lied to her for a whole year and let her beat herself up about it. So yeah, he's a douche, but she is still responsible. She just cannot take responsibility. First, it was the phone's fault she didn't watch her own child, and now it is wholly Matt's fault, even though she was not watching her child. Chapter 24 is back with Matt. He finally gets a text that his wife left, and a text from Neil apologizing for telling Ava what happened. Several more pages of Matt still at the party. He finally leaves to go home, and the house is deadly quiet. He sees Ava and starts trying to apologize, and Ava pretends to not know what he's talking about. She then starts therapizing him. Gaslighting is when you encourage the belief in something you know to be untrue to the detriment of someone's mental health. If you tell someone they left the front door open, a mistake that cost them the life of their daughter, when you know that actually they didn't do that, when you know that actually it was you left the door open, that's gaslighting. Gaslighting is, and this is the actual definition, to manipulate someone using psychological methods into questioning their own sanity or powers of reasoning. Okay? Had Matt actively manipulated her and drilled the idea into her head that she left the door open, all while she was so sure she did not leave the door open, that would be gaslighting. It is an act of intentionally making someone question their reality. Ava thought she left the door open. So yes, Matt lied, and that is not okay. But he never made her question her reality. That was a conclusion she came to all on her own. She goes off on him some more, and the chapter ends. Chapter 25 starts with a bad attempt at a pop culture reference. Babies know when you haven't slept, and they're like Darth Vader knows, and they punish you. I don't like Star Wars, so anyone who does, is this a thing? Like, does Darth Vader know these things? Because, like, in my mind, that's something that Santa Claus knows, but he wouldn't punish you for it. The rest of the chapter is her being upset at Matt, which is fair, but she is calm about it, almost like this is what she has wanted since Abby disappeared. She has also changed her tune, and is now saying Matt is abusive. It was Matt's idea to give Mr. Sloth to Fred. Isn't that morbid? I asked at the time, appalled. Now, of course, a darker shadow falls over it. It feels manipulative, abusive. I don't understand how this is either a manipulative move or abusive. He didn't murder Abby. If that was the case, yeah, it would be incredibly dark and sick, but he didn't. Ava has held fast to the belief that Abby is alive, so what part of that is manipulative? She is just so against him that she is now going to make up motives and paint the picture that doesn't exist. He is a liar, and he has lied about something massive, so believe him, but he hasn't done anything manipulative or abusive. Anyways, she goes to talk to Jen at some point in all of her Matt bashing. As she is talking to her, Jasmine recognizes Mr. Sloth and calls out for him. Chapter 26 is from Matt's point of view. He wakes up in the spare room and is wallowing in self-pity and hatred. He then goes downstairs, and Ava is very curt with him, and he tries to talk to her, thinking he will save the marriage. The chapter ends with Ava telling him that he has one more night to figure out where he can go, but he needs to move out. Which he will do to make Ava happy, but she hasn't been working, so he is the one who pays the bills, so in my opinion, she should be the one leaving, not him. Chapter 27 is back to Ava. She was awake really late into the night, and she is just thinking about Matt and the past, and then she decides to text Neil to meet her alone in the middle of the night. He agrees, and they meet up in front of her house. They start walking towards the lake where Abby supposedly drowned, and then they're talking about Matt and that day. Then she starts accusing Neil of kidnapping or killing Abby with no evidence and no founded suspicion. He is obviously upset at being called out of bed by someone he considered a friend and who's now calling him a monster. She then makes everything about her by throwing herself into the river. Chapter 28 has Neil pulling a struggling, screaming, crying Ava out of the river. Then we get another weird pronunciation. Would, I think. That's how Neil says the word world. So he can't say the R in the word world, but he has no problem with the 4 other R's in the sentence. They then talk more about nothing important and the chapter ends. Chapter 29, 30, 31, and 32 are all from Matt's point of view, and nothing important happens. He is now staying at Neil's house though, and this is the only quote I highlighted in those 4 chapters. She is panting, chewing her lip furiously. I only point this out because it is not possible to both pant and chew your lip at the same time. Breathing heavily and chewing your lip is possible, but not panting, because that is an open mouth action. Chapter 33 is from Ava's perspective and is not worth noting. Then we go back to Matt, who is now considering Neil as a prime suspect. This is based on how Neil acted after Matt told him about the door. Neil had suggested they keep it a secret and made Matt shake on it, something they had never done in their decades of friendship, as if he needed it to be kept a secret more than Matt did. So now that we get both of them accusing Neil, it's pretty obvious that the upcoming twist is that Neil had something to do with Abby's disappearance. Chapter 35 is back to Ava, who is desperate to bang Neil. The two of us crashing into the cold water, the strange, mad intimacy of that. The only reason he even touched her that night was to save her from trying to kill herself. There is nothing intimate about that. He doesn't want her. He was just trying to help her. This is just pathetic and sad on her part. She then arranges to meet Bella for coffee, just to accuse Neil of hurting Abby. Bella obviously defends Neil, and at that, Ava pretends she didn't mean to accuse him, and she wasn't saying he did anything, even though she blatantly is. Bella, please, I say, don't take this personally. I'm in hell here, can't you see? Can you imagine if someone accused you and your spouse of hurting your beloved godchild, and then they tell you not to take it personally? I love Bella for then putting Ava in her place, though. I don't know what it's like. I'm not a mum, so what, I'm some kind of psycho? Then she really goes in for the kill. You basically think you're better than us, don't you? Bella sneers down at me. You think what happened gives you the right to accuse us of doing something horrible. You're upset, I get it. You're grieving, I get that as well. Do you know why? Because I'm not as thick as you think, that's why. I can hold more than one thing in my tiny little brain. I'm gutted for myself, obviously, and for Neil. But I can be gutted for you as well, you know, and I am. I really am. I find it difficult to see little Fred, but that doesn't mean I'm not pleased for you. I'm not pretending my grief is anything compared to yours, but we were devastated, me and Neil. Devastated for us and for you. He's not been the same since that day, and we're having a terrible time. Really terrible. We haven't been there for you. I know that, and I'm sorry, but you haven't been there for us. But that's no one's fault. Sometimes it's no one's fault, Ava, but you don't get to go around accusing Neil of having something to do with Abby's death, alright? And I'll appreciate if you stop having little midnight heart-to-hearts with him, alright? He's my husband, Ava. Mine, not yours. Bella reads her for filth, and I love it. Out of all of that, though, the only thing that Ava says is, my head throbs. What? Bella, what are you even saying? Where in the hell is this coming from? I'm not after Neil. That's nuts. Be so for real, Ava. You are so after Neil. Just like point blank, you are lying about that. But also, that's all she got out of that. She continues to be shitty to Bella, who is not taking it, so Ava leaves. Next chapter is back to Matt, who is still not doing anything of note. He is, however, still talking about how it's probably Neil, because the author does not know what subtlety is. Chapter 37 is Ava's point of view, and Matt calls her to talk about how Neil is responsible for Abby's murder, or whatever happened. He also tells her that he felt Abby's heartbeat through the steel beam of the party, as if that makes sense or is normal. Ava then tells him what she was able to get out of Bella before she was told to leave. When Ava knocked for Neil, he was at home, which was unusual but not alarm bell ringing. Later, when the more unpleasant glimmer of suspicion fell upon them and their best friend, the dog sniffed their way around their house too and found nothing. Nothing because Abby had never been there. It's just too drawn out at this point. Like, we've been harping on Neil for 10 chapters. And you expect it to be a twist when it turns out he was involved? This much harping would make neither him being involved or not being involved a twist. Chapter 38 is Ava again. I think I skipped chapter 37. Unimportant, honestly. She is now accusing Bella of being a murderer based off of a crazy conspiracy that Neil and Bella kidnapped Abby to be their child, meaning to fly her out of the country to foreign contacts, where they would then go and meet her. But they were doing IVF, so it was too expensive, so they killed Abby and Neil covered it up. Anyways, they are finally talking to police about these deep suspicions they have about Neil. The police say they'll do a follow-up and Matt and Ava go home together, united in their accusations, and the chapter ends with, he confessed, Neil killed our little girl. Chapter 39 is from Neil's perspective, starting with him getting driven to the police station. He is wallowing in self-pity, and then we get the admission. The conscious part, he thinks, was the moment he pulled the zipper over her pale and sleeping face, but maybe not. He just didn't kill her. If he had, we wouldn't have heard about it for the last 12 chapters, and the book would have ended with him being arrested 10 chapters ago. This is another little setup for another twist. He's about to become Neil Johnson, the guy who killed his best friend's child. I know he doesn't actually mean that it is a lesser title to have been a killer of a child, but it reads like he thinks that he will get more hate for killing his friend's kid rather than the fact that it was a child. Chapter 40 is from Ava's perspective, and we are back at the police station where the detective is telling them the story. How the detective and the parents talk bothered me immensely in this exchange. Farnham performs her now familiar mannerism of brushing her hand across her chin. Sometimes you get the impression that no matter how much a suspect is resisting, actually they want to confess. There's kind of inevitability to it, as if you and they know that's where it's all headed. An innocent person will tend to be very insistent. They can get physical, but throughout, Mr. Johnson seemed like he was going through the motions, like he'd lost a will, or couldn't or didn't want to lie anymore. and once we had him against the wall, as it were, he admitted that yes, Jasmine had seen him and he had shown her the toy, and that's when he broke down. I mean, he said it with his own mouth, not under duress or anything. That's the working theory, yes, and I'll give you a full account of the sequence of events as we understand them in a moment. But tomorrow, we're going to excavate your next-door neighbor's kitchen floor with a view to accessing the trench immediately into the rear of the kitchen entrance. The police just would not tell the victim's family all of this. Like, they would give them details, but not as if they're in a true crime show explaining to the audience how the killer thinks. Then Matt asked if he was under duress, like that is a normal thing to ask when you find out your child has been murdered by your brethren. And oh my god, I'll get to it in a moment. That is not how people talk, and certainly not in that situation. Chapter 41 is back to Neil's perspective, and we start back in time at the Lovegoods. He got to work early as usual, and is working before his crew gets in. He notices that he left the kitchen door open, something the Lovegoods told him not to do unless he wants to be fired, for a good reason, no, because they have a disabled kid and there's construction, they don't want her in harm's way. Plus their youngest is 2 at the time, so save her for her too. As he goes outside to make sure that everything is okay, and does not run into Johnny that morning, he sees Abby's sloth on the ground, and then he looks in the trench to find Abby. Abby, little Abby, his darling little girl, the set of her limbs, the slackness of her mouth, her skin. A cellophane bag lies by her head, just beyond her tiny fist. In it, 2 slices of bread. 2 enormous plasters cover her little knees. Very sad, yes, but he checks for her pulse and there isn't one. He has stood there panicking, but then he hears Jasmine calling for him, so he plays a little pocket game with Mistress Sloth. He then slips away into a utility closet so the Lovegoods wouldn't know he's there yet. The family leaves and he slips back out to figure out what to do. Instead of calling police, as this would just be an unfortunate accident, he is going to cover it up. He hears Ava calling for Abby and realizes he needs to move fast. He puts Abby in his tool bag and knows that he has to go home and act as though he hasn't been at the Lovegoods' house yet. He makes it home and texts the Lovegoods to say he won't be in until later in the day. Chapter 42 is back to Ava's point of view in present day. Her and Matt are welcoming the police into their home again. At the party we both sensed she was there. Which just kills me, because she can take no responsibility for anything, but God forbid something isn't about her. She never sensed Abby there, just because she thinks the whole world revolves around her and she assumes everyone else is also thinking about Abby, doesn't mean she sensed her there. At least with Matt, we actually get a scene where he had this weird moment, but there was nothing like that with Ava. Anyways, Matt and her get back together, big surprise, and the police are just blabbing about nothing, as is Ava. Back to Neil for the next chapter. He's in his cell, reminiscing and thinking about that day again. Literally nothing new happens. We get Matt's point of view next. It is more of him thinking of the past, mixed with present day since the police are there. Does this mean you'll be arresting Neil now for murder? Police would have told him this already, but also, this is the wrong question. He was already arrested and has already confessed. The correct question is, will he be charged for the murder, which is pretty obvious, so both questions are unnecessary. Then the police, though, say, I was getting to that, like, attitude check. Yeah, they're stupid, but you should have told them first, not wait and explain the whole day of events to grieving parents. Back to Ava's point of view, they get a call from police. They found a paint chip on Abby's body and they were testing it. It has come back as being cayenne, which is the color used for the Porsche Cayenne that Johnny Lovegood drives. So Johnny actually killed Abby. Next chapter is from Johnny's point of view. We are back in time to that day. The family is rushing. He's pulling out of the garage onto the driveway and hits something. He got out and it was Abby. He runs out back, tosses Abby into the trench. He was staging it as an accident. She wandered in and fell. Tragic. He was also doing it to make it Neil's fault, calling it professional negligence, which bothers me immensely. Chapter 41, 44, and 46 all mention professional negligence, twice on the same page in chapter 46. Both Johnny and Neil think this, which is bizarre. Also, something that bothers me immensely and I'll explain. That's not how it works. Leaving an internal door open would not be considered professional negligence in any way. A preference for the owners maybe, but nothing more. Even leaving the front door and the back door open would not fall under negligence. To be professional negligence, it would have to be specifically negligence related to their client. Some random little kid wandering in and accidentally falling into a trench is not professional negligence. It is not something that can be accounted for, nor is it client related. Had Neil not properly secured a steel beam and it fell on one of the Lovegoods, that would be professional negligence. I think it just bothers me because they don't say it once and leave it at that. Both Neil and Johnny think it, not once, but 4 times. Both men had the same first thought about a dead child. Like, really? Neil, realistically, would have been distraught but thought it was an accident, and Johnny also would have been thinking to frame it like it was an accident that he had nothing to do with. I digress. He then goes back out front with his family and are ready to go. He is just waiting for the call all day that there was an accident at his house, but the call never comes. When he gets home, he realizes that Neil took care of the problem, which is why he ends up tipping him so much. Back to Ava's point of view in present day, police are filling him in on what happened. The next chapter is a 4-month time jump. They're living in a new town, trying to get their life back on track. We find out that Neil was convicted of prevention of lawful burial and conspiracy to pervert the course of justice, which actually does make sense. He's only going to serve 1 year, and he and Bella are still together. Johnny was convicted of manslaughter and conspiracy to pervert the course of justice. He is serving a maximum sentence. How long that is, we are not told. Back to the present, Ava is back to being a good partner, parent, and person, because knowing your child died somehow makes her suddenly able to cope with life. That is the end, but the last page has a trope that bothers me immensely. If you have another book, by all means put an excerpt for your next book, advertise that on the next page, but not on the last page of the current novel. If I wanted to read the excerpt, I am more inclined to do so if I am not tricked into it. I will keep flipping pages just to make sure I'm not missing the epilogue, so don't put anything about another book on the last page and make us think it's a continuation of the book I am currently reading. Overall, I hate the book. It isn't well written, and it's just 98% nothingness. It takes 17 chapters to actually get to the housewarming party, which is when anything actually happens, and it isn't even at the party, it's after the party. So really, it isn't until chapter 21 that we get something other than Ava crying that her kid is gone. And that is literally it. That is the first half of the book. Also, I said I would tally how many times we have to hear about the stupid door. 11 times before we learn that it wasn't Ava. 3 times in chapter 1, twice in chapter 2, twice in chapter 3, once in chapter 7, once in chapter 11, once in chapter 12, and once in chapter 21. We are not done yet, though. We then get the reveal that it wasn't Ava who left the door open, but we aren't done harping on the door. 21 more times. So a total of 32 times we have to hear about who left the door open and the door being left open. It is mind-numbing. The author really thought they were being so smart while leaving all these loaves of bread for us to guess every twist with ease. Please, please bring back subtlety. Hyper-focusing on things that are supposed to be the twist do not make it a twist. It just reads as though you can't write or think your audience is stupid. Mention it maybe 3 times, but more than that, it's just way too much and is no longer interesting. Same thing with when they were suspecting Neil. It's made glaringly obvious that he wasn't the killer. It wasn't like they were adding suspicion here or there, or treating it like a passing thought. They spent chapter after chapter making it the focus, and then accusing him to his face. Like, if you think he killed your kid, go to police immediately. Don't accuse an assumed murderer to their face. Again, literally the only thing I will give to this book is the portrayal of Jasmine. Very well done, but that is it. It wasn't interesting, it wasn't well written, it wasn't compelling. I'm glad when it ended. 1 out of 10. I did want to go over the synopsis since we know what happened. Ava only left her daughter for 5 minutes. Obviously, we aren't going to get a ton of info in the synopsis. They only include the bits that hook you, but this is just a blatant lie. Even in the book, she acknowledges that she left her for longer in the first chapter, so weird to say 5 minutes when that isn't at all accurate. In regards to the party, we get she doesn't want to spend time with people who don't share her grief. This is not wrong, but looking back, I don't know how I missed this in the synopsis before reading. It is valid to never get over the death or disappearance of a loved one, but to not want to go to a party because not everyone is as upset about your dead kid as you are makes no sense. Like, how self-absorbed do you have to be genuinely? But as her friends and neighbors chat and the drink and gossip flows, Ava learns something new about the day that she has relived 1,000 times. A throwaway comment which could change everything. My question is, what throwaway comment? There was no comment that was randomly thrown in or overheard. She is told point blank that her husband left the door open after the party, so this is again just blatantly not true. When you write a synopsis, you aren't supposed to lie to make the book more interesting. You are supposed to make what actually happened clickbaity, but not just straight up lie to entice people to read your book. If summarizing what actually happened does not make people interested, try rewriting the book to be more interesting. That's all that I have for you today. Ooh, it's a lot more relaxed of a video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was, oh my god, that took me like a full month to write the review. I literally finished that work because I had nothing else to do. But oh my god. Oh, that was a mess, and it was just nothing. Like, I understand that maybe I'm not like the demographic for a book about loss of a child or about parents because I'm not a parent. I can enjoy a book that has children in it or that has parents in it. Like, I'm not saying that like I can't enjoy any of that, but maybe I'm not the demographic the author was going for, because I picked this one up whenever I first started getting into thrillers. I just went through and I googled thriller books, and so just a list of thrillers came up and stuff, and so I was checking like Goodreads reviews and cross like referencing like thrift books because I wanted cheap books, and obviously like Kindle Unlimited, which is where I got this one, and this one came up, and I was like, oh well, it's a thriller, and it's actually rated decently on Goodreads, so I was like, yeah, might as well pick it up. So that is why and how I started reading this one. I feel like there was a point I was making. I don't remember what it is. Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry. Um, I don't know what this author's like dream demographic is, because obviously you have people who are into mysteries, into thrillers, and then you have people who don't want to read about dead kids, and so I don't know what their like actual reader base that they wanted was, but I don't think I'm it. But yeah, I will again say, like I did my last book review, I am in the minority when it comes to my opinion about the book. I am in the minority. Everyone, most other people seem to like it, which is, a lot of times you see negative reviews tend to be a lot more popular or a lot more rampant because people will complain about something, anything, before they'll speak positively about it. Because obviously you want to tell somebody if there's a problem with it, you don't really think like, hey, I need to, review every single book I've ever done, if I loved it, if I didn't love it. So, you'd expect to see more lower reviews, but you don't, so I am technically in the minority for this book, which is fine. I'm not trying to yuck anyone's yum. If you like a book that I don't like, power to you. I'm sure you don't like books that I like, so it's just personal preference. It is what it is. I did not enjoy this book, and that's it is what it is. Speaking of being in the minority, though, for the next book that I review, I am kind of more in the majority of liking the book, but there are some pretty negative reviews that I saw about it that I would definitely address when I reviewed the book. I had to reread it, but it just goes to show you that like it's really hit or miss as to what you like. Like I reference Goodread for most of my pre-book buying endeavors. And so I I don't want to really read books that are rated under 4 stars. So I'll go there because obviously like a synopsis like we saw in this book can just be a blatant lie or a complete misrepresentation of what the book is. So it could sound really, really interesting, and then you pick up the book and it's nothing like that. So I tend to reference that, and I don't really read stuff that's under 4 stars. But for whatever reason, like I'll pick up a few that are, and it's I think the majority I agree with being not great. But yeah, the next book that I'm reading is I think a little bit lower in rating than this current one I'll put on the screen. It's The Guest Room, by the way, by Trisha Silver. Sorry, I left the book at work, so I don't have it. I'm also a little tipsy, so there's that. But yeah, from what I remember, I enjoyed the book. It's one of the first ones that I bought, um, just kind of off of a whim because the reviews weren't great. But that's one of the first ones I bought, so I read that several years ago now. For future, I'm like, I need to put this down. For future videos, I want to like change it up for this series, and then another series that I am working on. It's a project. It's a big project. I don't want to reveal too much now. I don't want to reveal anything now, but anyway, there's a big project coming. But for this series and for the other series, I want it to be more relaxed. I just want to talk about stuff. And like I like talking about stuff in my normal regular series. Like don't get me wrong there. I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it, but I feel like I hold myself to a higher caliber when it's stuff like that. So those videos, I'm going to keep my normal professional full makeup, full professionality, whatever you want to call it, full presenter mode. But for this series and the next series, I think I'm going to just flip my camera around and start filming in bed. With all of that being said, I appreciate that you guys joined me for this. It was a lot of me chatting shit most of the time. But no, I really enjoyed this. This felt a lot chiller than the last book review. So there's that. I enjoy this, honestly. The book review thing, like, I'm dead serious when I say that when I read a book, I would just tell my family, like, about it, like, what, everything that happens in it. I don't know why, I just feel that desire to talk about it, like, every single part of it, like, the whole plot, and everything that happens, everything I do like or I don't like about it, and so I've been subjecting my family to that for several years now. So it is nice to talk about books on here with anybody who might be mildly interested or be able to dissuade people who might be mildly interested in certain books. But yeah, I've just enjoyed like the chilling and talking. I feel like this one is a lot more chill. This is more what I was going for in the last one. I just didn't know how to come across, but I do want to continue the chillness. So as I grow and as I learn and adapt, I would like to continue this series. But I am tipsy, going to finish this, have a cat in my lap, very warm, and then go to bed because it is currently 11 p.m. where I am, and I have 3 videos to film tomorrow. Joy. But yeah, I thank you for letting me ramble, guys. I really appreciate y'all. Let me know if there's a recommendation for a book. Any book. I will venture out of my thriller preference. That is not a problem at all. If it's a good enough book, I'll read it. It doesn't matter. And if you have read the book, let me know what you think. No hate towards you if you do enjoy it. I want to know why you enjoy it. You know, that's my theme. Please let me know. And then if you haven't read the book, let me know if I made you really want to read it, or if this is good. This is like reading it. But yeah, I have talked way too much. Nobody is here for this part of it, so if you are. But I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye.